Has your neck been feeling achy and stiff for the last few months? For a lot of people, their change in activities and ergonomics associated with quarantine has brought on significant neck pain. It doesn't tend to go away with just stretching alone. The good news is, however, that there's a lot of things that you can do at home to get rid of your quarantine neck pain, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in this video. So hit that like button and stay tuned. Hello, I'm Dr. Sandy Baird. Welcome to another video. If you would like to learn how to move better, how to get out of pain, and how to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle, start now by subscribing and clicking that bell notification so you don't miss a single weekly video. With the increase in need to work from home, combined with this extra level of stress that the pandemic is blanketing down upon us, many people are seeking the help of a sports chiropractor for neck pain. And you may have tried a lot of home remedies already, like ice and heat and stretching and taking ibuprofen, and they may have helped for a short period of time, but they're not actually getting you all the way there. And you may have noticed that your neck pain is getting in the way of being able to focus at work. Maybe it's keeping you up at night. Maybe you can't really spend quality time with your family because you're just always in pain. Well, there's a reason that these home remedies will get you a little bit of the way, but not all the way. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why. There's a certain crossover point, and we'll talk about that later in the video, where injuries move from just being a muscle issue that's overly tight into entering the cyclical injury cycle. At that point, you need the services of a sports chiropractor or a physiotherapist. But if you can catch things early before they enter that cycle, or if you're into the cycle and you can catch it before you go into that swirly cycle vortex, you can actually keep things from getting worse until you can get in to see a provider. So in this video, I'm going to show you my top tips for getting rid of your stiff, achy neck so you can get back to moving, playing, and surviving this pandemic better. So let's dig in. So before we get to the tips, I mentioned that I would tell you why ice and heat and stretching and things like that won't actually fix your neck pain. So what happens when a muscle gets overly tight? Well, when a muscle gets overly tight, it's constantly and repeatedly contracted, and under those conditions, there's not as much oxygen as there needs to be, and free radicals jump in. Now, free radicals are just sensitive and specific triggers for chemotaxis, and I love that word, chemotaxis. It basically means the movement of a cell because there's a change in concentration of a particular substance. But in my mind, I picture a very small, colorful taxi carrying tiny cells around, piloted by mastermind criminals. Anyway, the free radicals invite in the inflammatory cells, which rush in and they throw down collagen cross bridges, which basically glue the muscle together in an attempt to repair the damage. And as a result, adhesion forms. If you were to look under a microscope, regular muscle fibers would be oriented in a parallel direction, as shown in the first image here. An adhesion would be a disorganized tangle, as shown in the second image. And this is how we get swept up into the chronic injury cycle. A muscle gets tight and overly contracted, and it just builds up adhesion, and it goes further and further into the cycle until you break the cycle. Once adhesion is formed, it's kind of like trying to stretch out a rope that has a knot in the middle of it. You may get a little bit of stretch on either end, but you're just going to tighten up the knot and not actually affect it. You need mechanical pressure to actually break up that adhesion. Studies have shown that you need 6 pounds per square inch of mechanical pressure to break the bonds of adhesion. So that's the bad news, that adhesion is present. The good news is that it's treatable. And what that looks like is using manual therapy, which is either hands-on or it's tool-assisted therapy to actually remodel that adhesion and allow it to form into its more parallel fashion. So when we're looking at the cumulative injury cycle, there's 2 ways to enter it. The first is through an acute injury, like falling off your bike or having a car crash. And then the second way, the most common way to enter the cycle, is through a more chronic overuse type of scenario, where the muscles are always contracted and working overtime like we mentioned. So friction and pressure and tension build up, which leads to increased swelling, and there's not as much circulation in the area, so adhesions form. And that creates even more weak and tight muscles. So you can see how you could continue the cycle until you can break it. Okay, now that you understand what is at the root of your neck issue and how it can get worse if you don't attend to it early, let's look at my top tips for getting rid of it. So first up, stretching. So stretching does have some benefit. It's one of the things that you need to do to fix your neck pain, but it's not the only thing. So with that, let's jump into 2 of the best neck stretches that you're going to need to do to get rid of your neck pain. And I'm going to jump to voiceover here to clearly illustrate these exercises. The first stretch that we're going to do is for the upper trap. So you're going to tilt your head away from your shoulder and reach your arm for the ground. If you want a little bit more stretch, you can reach up with your hand and put a little bit of overpressure into the stretch. Now, we don't want to feel like our neck is crunched down like this. grow nice and tall through the neck, and then apply a little bit of overpressure. You want to hold this stretch for about 30 to 60 seconds. The next stretch is going to be for the levator scapula muscle, which is right behind that upper trap. And you basically change your head position, so you're tucking your chin down to your chest and then looking underneath your armpit. The second step is to put in place a good sleeping support system. So I have another video that talks about the best safe sleeping positions for your neck, and it also talks about how to actually turn over from one position to another to help prevent your neck from getting an ache or a crank in the middle of the night. And I'm going to link that up on the screen as well as down in the description box so you can check that out. But now let's talk about how to actually support your neck while you sleep. Your neck is made up of a curved stack of 7 cervical vertebrae. It's actually an opposite curve from the curve of your upper back. And what happens when you sleep on your back without the proper support under your neck for those ligaments is that those ligaments are susceptible to creep. So what is creep, you might ask? Well, this brings me back to my days many years ago as a professional civil engineer, where I would spend hours a day analyzing creep diagrams of different building materials. And as it turns out, the human body is not as different as you might think than a steel or concrete structure. A constant load applied over a long period of time to soft tissues, like the ligaments that connect bone to bone in your neck, causes creep. And when that creep goes beyond its elastic capability into its plastic range, permanent plastic deformation can result. And so what does all this mean, elastic and plastic? Well, basically it means for a given load over a period of time, the springiness in the ligaments, they still have their ability to recoil. But if you keep that going on for long enough without the proper support, the ligaments aren't going to be able to recoil as well as they normally would, and so the neck becomes less stable as a result. That's why you always hear about the importance of having a good pillow, and it's basically to support those ligaments of the neck so they don't undergo that plastic deformation or creep. So there's a lot of different choices for pillows on the market, but the main consideration is that you have support underneath the middle of your neck, not just under your head. So I'll link an appropriate pillow down in the description box below. The third step to getting rid of your neck pain is doing your active ranges of motion, and here's what they look like. We want to start our active neck range of motions with a chin tucked to the chest for neck flexion, and then an extension all the way up and looking up towards the sky. So this should be a nice, smooth, gliding motion. And sometimes you'll hear a little bit of clicking or cracking, and that's totally fine as long as it's not painful. But once you do about 5 to 10 of these, you're going to start to feel like they're getting a little bit smoother the longer that you do them. And then the next motion that we're going to do after we finish up this one is pure rotation. So you're twisting to look over one shoulder and then turning your head to look over the other shoulder. And there's no thoracic motion here, so your shoulders aren't moving, your back isn't moving. It's just your head twisting. And so this is one of these things where somehow neck circles have become common in fitness circles, and the warm-up will be doing neck rolls. But the neck is not a ball and socket joint, so why would you do neck rolls? The next active range of motion that you want to do for your neck is side bending or lateral bending. And with each of these motions, we're aiming to do about 5 to 10 reps, or at least until things start to smooth out from side to side. Now we're moving into a combination movement. For this one, you want to keep your chin tucked into your chest the entire time. And as you move your head in a half circle here, it's almost like you're tracing the outline of the neckline of your shirt. So the next time that you fully roll your head over to the side, you're going to pause and you're going to look up in the opposite direction and then come back chin towards your shoulder and then continue into the semicircle. Same thing here. And you're just going to find a flow here. So it takes a few minutes to kind of get used to this new movement pattern. But you sweep around, you look up and away, come back through, and keep your chin tucked into your chest as you move through the semicircle. The next step is similar, but it involves getting a towel so that you can do your towel-assisted ranges of motion. So here's how to do that. For the towel assistance exercises, I'm showing you here the exact angle that I want you to pull at. I think when I was filming this, this must have just felt really good on my neck to do it this way. But ideally, you'd be driving that front hand a little bit higher upward, and that's going to allow you to get just a little bit more rotation. But either way, we're not trying to push into any range of motion that's uncomfortable here. The towel just allows our neck to relax a little bit so that we can get into our full range of motion here. So we're doing about 5 on each side, and then we're switching sides. Roll up your towel and place it right along the middle of your neck. Find a comfortable grasp, and then you're going to pull into your neck and then up. So this is going to put you into extension, and this is just showing a different angle in the next clip here, but we're just doing about 5 to 10 of these extensions. The next step is doing your self-myofascial release work. So we mentioned before that when a muscle is in the process of starting to tighten up and progress into adhesion, pressure is one way to prevent it from entering that injury cycle. Now there's a more complete list of muscles that you're going to need to fully attend to actually get rid of all of your neck pain. And if you're interested, I do have a link down in the description box to my free guide of how to get rid of your neck pain in quarantine. But to get started right now, here's 4 of the most important self-myofascial release exercises that you can do at home right now to help get rid of your neck tightness and get rid of your neck pain. So let's look at those right now. For this first exercise, you can use 2 balls in the net that they come in, or if you don't have a net, you can just drop 2 balls into a sock. And then you're going to want a yoga block or a stack of books to put the balls on top of. Go ahead and lie on your back, and you're going to position the balls right underneath the base of your skull. So it's not underneath the middle of your neck, it's right at the base of your skull on your suboccipital muscles. And so once you've arrived in this position, it may feel like a lot of pressure, especially if you haven't done this before. So see if you can just take a few deep breaths and relax into the pressure. Once you've gotten used to the pressure a little bit, you're going to actively press the back of your head into the 2 balls. So you're going to do a press and then release. Press and then release. Press and release. And then you can also do a little bit of a gentle head nod here. So you're kind of nodding yes. And the balls aren't moving too much. It's just that you're getting a different angle of pressure on them right now. Go ahead and reposition the balls a little bit lower so that they're supporting the curve in the middle of your neck. And you're also going to want to scoot the yoga block more towards your shoulders. A couple of breaths here to kind of get used to the pressure. And then when you're feeling like you're ready, you can add a little bit of rotation. And so because there's 2 balls there, you're not going to actually rotate too far, but it can feel really good to rotate and get more pressure on the right side, and then rotate to the left and get more pressure on the left side, etc. The second exercise is very similar to the first in terms of the setup, but for this one we're just using 1 ball placed right in the center of the neck. And as I rotate my head to the side, I'm actually pushing down into the ball harder than I am in the neutral position. So this is a really nice way to get into the soft tissues of the side of your neck. To release the upper trap muscle, I'm going to put 1 ball underneath my upper trap. And then the higher you lift your hips on this exercise, the more pressure you're going to feel. So I have a yoga block tucked underneath my sacrum so that I can relax my hips once I've gotten to my ideal level of pressure. And I'm going to show you a few different options you can do here to add to this move, like moving your arm back and forth, using your heels to rock your body into the pressure, or even moving your head away from the ball. But if you get into this position and you feel like this is just wonderful and it feels effective and you want to just hang out on that spot, then there's nothing wrong with it just coming to a still position and just taking some breaths for up to a minute or 2 minutes. So I'm showing you here how you can use your heels to gently move your body in and out of pressure, and then also how you can move your head away from the pressure point. So sometimes it feels like you can create a little bit of a stretch with pressure. The levator scapula muscle is right behind the upper trap, so all you need to do is slide the ball back and down just a little bit. And then again, you have some options here. So if it feels really nice to just stay on this spot and breathe, that is definitely one option. You can also add in some arm movement if that feels good. You can also use your heels to rock your body in and out of the pressure. And I'll show you those options here in a moment. So I'm using my heels just to push the mat away from me. And now I'm adding in some arm motion too. Just a couple of options. You have to just play with what feels good for you. If it's too much pressure, you can take the yoga block out from under your hips and just come down to the ground with your hips. Another option here is to kind of squeeze the ball between your shoulder blades and then reach for the sky. You're going back and forth, squeeze and reach, squeeze and reach. Sometimes reaching across feels better. It's just up to you. Everybody's body is a little bit different, so I'm just showing you a few options here. And then this is kind of a bonus, but if you scoot the ball a little bit further down, you're going to be onto the tissue of the rhomboid muscles. And it could be nice to just come back down to the ground for this one. We don't need to drive that much more pressure on it since it's just naturally going to have more pressure in that position. And then again, adding arm motion can just challenge things and make it feel like we're pinning the tissue down and then stretching it. But it can also be nice just to hang out on one spot that feels really tight and feel it release. With all the sitting and all the forward-facing work that we tend to do, our postural muscles get fatigued and overworked, and our upper traps try to jump in to do more than their fair share of the job, and that's why they always feel so tight. So as we mentioned in the previous step, yes, it's very important to get rid of the tightness in the upper traps, but it's also important to strengthen the back muscles so that we don't get into the cycle in the first place. Otherwise, we're just putting out fires. We really need to get to the root of the issue. So we're going to look at the exercises right now that are going to help you strengthen those postural muscles. Tuck your chin to your chest and notice whether if you did that, did your low back pop up off the mat? If it did, press your low back into the mat, pull your belly button to your spine and retuck that chin. From there, keep that chin tucked in as you lift your head up off the mat. You're going to hold this position for about 10 seconds. Keep your core engaged. And as you're ready to lower your head back to the mat, you're going to keep that chin tucked in. And we can add a challenge to this one as well. So we'll do one more rep here, and then we'll add the challenge. So as you come up into the top of the position, you're going to use your hand to apply a little bit of pressure to your forehead. Now if you apply that pressure, and you notice that your chin is popping up off your chest, just like we're showing there, not good. You want to tuck that chin to your chest and then apply pressure from there. Good. Tuck your chin into your chest for this exercise as well. There's lots of fancy neck gadgets on the market that'll strengthen your neck, but all you really need is gravity. So I'm showing you the proper form here. We're lifting our head and my head is in line with my spine. I'm going to show you when you turn down, that's not great form. And if you rotate up, that's not great form either. You want your head aligned with your spine and looking straight ahead. Another thing that commonly happens with this is the chin will poke out like a turtle, and that's not gonna work the right muscles. You want to tuck the chin in and then perform the exercise from there. Interlace your fingers behind your neck for this exercise. And it doesn't really look like too much is happening here, but what I'm doing is I'm pressing back with my head and I'm pressing forward with my hands. We're holding it for a moment and then releasing. Good, and I'm just showing you from a couple different angles here. And again, you don't see too much, but you can see the slight contraction of the muscles as I press my head into my hands and vice versa. For the prone IYTW exercise, you want to lay face down with your forehead pressed into the mat and keeping your arms straight. Now, if you do this exercise and you're wearing your shoulders like earrings, you're just not going to target the right muscles. So what you want to do instead is to pull your shoulder blades down and back, tuck them in your back pockets, and then straighten your arms. So this is the I position. And you want to do about 10 to 15 reps in this position before moving on to the next position. And this is much harder than it looks to keep your arms straight and to keep the shoulder blades engaged and to lift against gravity. So I just moved out into the Y position for the next part of the exercise here. It's a pretty similar movement to the I. Again, we're doing 10 to 15 reps here. And then the next position is going to be a T position. And I find that the T is the easiest of all of them. So you may want to actually start with the T to get the idea of tucking the shoulder blades into your back pocket. But again, nice straight arms here. And you're just lifting up off the ground just a few inches. It's not a crazy range of motion here, just a little bit, and you will feel it. You don't have to go far. And then the last movement pattern in this exercise is the W. So you bring your arms more or less to 90 degrees. And you want to think about keeping slight external rotation in your shoulders. So they're going to want to dump into internal rotation. But if you can think about lifting your wrists up towards the sky, that's going to help a lot. And again, you want to feel this between your shoulder blades. So I've shared some amazing tips with you today that are going to go a long way towards resolving your neck pain. And as we mentioned, things may have progressed a little bit too far and you may need to seek some professional treatment. The two reasons for this are because when we start to go into that injury cycle, two things can happen. Number one is that adhesion has formed, and that actually needs to be broken down by somebody who has manual therapy services. The second thing that happens is when those muscles are pulling and tugging constantly on the joints for too long, the joints can actually become stuck or fixated. And that's something that only a chiropractor or a physical therapist can help you with to really resolve that. So I offer those chiropractic services in Oakland, California. And also as a side note, if you are experiencing any red flag symptoms, such as a radiating pain, tingling, numbness down the arm, anything like that, you do want to get that checked out by a professional. But if you're mainly dealing with an achy, stiff, tight neck, and you want to take things into your own hands and help treat your neck pain at home, go ahead and head down into the description box right now. You can download my free ebook guide for how to fix your neck pain in quarantine. It has my whole at-home system outlined step by step with a complete set of stretching, strengthening, mobility, and self-myofascial release exercises that you need to do to fix your neck pain and get back to living with less pain, more ease, and less frustration. So what do you think? Which one of the steps are you going to try first to help get rid of some of your quarantine neck pain? I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and share it with someone who you think it would be helpful to. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you can do that right over here. There's more videos right over here as well that you might be interested in. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.